This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. As always, good to have you with us. Primary election day, Tuesday, March 1st. On the ballot, Democrats and Republicans will make their choices for president. Republicans will choose a Senate nominee. And everyone will get a chance to vote for 2 Supreme Court seats, including the Chief Justice spot. And that is where we begin today. Judge Dan Kemp and Justice Courtney Goodson are both vying for the position of Chief Justice. It's been a rough and tumble month of campaigning, with major money being spent by the candidates and outside of state special interest groups. Now, I tried to get Kemp and Goodson in the same room at the same time, but logistics and scheduling just didn't work out. So you get to see 2 one-on-one interviews, beginning with Judge Dan Kemp. You are one of 2 candidates seeking the Supreme Court Chief Justice seat. It is the biggest, most important seat in the judicial branch of government. Tell me why you are more qualified than your opponent, Justice Goodson.
Well, I've had 10 years experience as a practicing attorney in Mountain View. 9 years of those I was a municipal judge. So I decided misdemeanor cases and small claims cases. And then in 1986 I was elected as circuit judge for our 5-county district. And this is my 30th year serving as a circuit judge. So I've got the experience of handling over 30,000 cases on my docket since then. For the past 9 years, the judges in my district have elected me as their administrative judge. The Chief Justice position has a lot of administrative duties.
Right.
So I believe I can hit the ground running when it comes to the administrative part of this position. I've decided cases, the same type of cases that will be coming to the Supreme Court for the past 29 plus years. So I believe that experience as far as just decision making by a judge and as a judge will be beneficial as well.
Let's talk about some of the politics of this race. There has been candidate money in this race. There has been special interest money in this race. We call it dark money because we don't really know a lot of where it comes from. The Judicial Crisis Network, it has been benefiting your campaign in that, those ads have been running against Justice Goodson. You have said in response to those ads, and I quote you, "Let me be clear, I do not believe there is any place in our judiciary for this type of politics. I firmly reject it." Tell me what you firmly reject.
It was the particular mailer ad that came out which criticized my opponent on her decision in the voter ID case. That was a unanimous decision of the Arkansas Supreme Court, and to just pick on her individually and then relate that to some type of a national immigration issue, I believe that's unfair, so I do reject that.
Do we need to change the law in the state of Arkansas to deal with this type of situation? Would you support changing the state law, testifying in favor of a state law that says we need more disclosure of these types of...
Yes, I would. I believe there's going to be 1 or 2 outcomes from this campaign season. Either a reform in our present system of electing judges and justices on the appellate courts, or a proposal to change to an appointment process for appellate judges and justices.
You want to weigh in on that? Which do you
Well, my
favor?
preference is election. I believe we still should have election. Now, we just need to reform the system, I believe, to make it more transparent. And hopefully that can be done by looking at what other states have done that elect judges and justices, and hopefully come up with something, well, the best of what some other states have done.
I want to give you a chance to defend a report that has been out there in the public as well, too. The Blue Hog Report has reported on, I guess if I could capsulize the post, 2 felony charges were reduced for a daughter of a couple that eventually maxed out in campaign contributions to you after you signed an order on that. Kind of defend the circumstances of that case, because there is a process for how all of this works. And then maybe speak to the appearance of the circumstances of the case, which are kind of 2 different things. Okay,
Roby. The charges were apparently filed about a year ago, or 2014. And the prosecutor and the defense attorney had made an agreement at that time, and the judges don't get involved in plea agreements. That's between the prosecutor and the defense attorney. And apparently they made an agreement that if this young lady went to rehab and successfully completed the rehab, that the charges could be dismissed. So they proposed that to the court. and she went through rehab apparently for a year's period of time. The prosecutor then, after the year was up, submitted to the court under that plea agreement to dismiss the felony charges. I believe she pled guilty to a DWI charge, and presented to me that that was an agreement a year before the case was pled.
Is this fairly commonplace? Do you see a lot of these types of plea agreements?
Yes, fairly common, where somebody may be charged initially would agree to get some help for their drug problems and go to a rehab center someplace. And then if they successfully complete that, the prosecutor would make a recommendation based on that successful completion.
So we've talked about just kind of, you've been out there on the campaign trail, you get to meet a lot of people. It is a grueling process. You're covering all of the different parts of the state. What would you say is the best part of running for this office?
Well, the best part is meeting the people. Just reacquainting myself particularly with old college classmates, so college fraternity brothers, law school classmates. That's been the most enjoyable part. I've seen probably 20, 25, maybe 30 old college fraternity brothers, and I've really enjoyed that. And just meeting the people. My wife and I have really enjoyed going out and meeting the people and talking with them.
Get some great memories there. Justice Hannah, recently deceased, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was very proactive in trying to make more access for the courts to the people. Did a lot of traveling tours around the state. Are you going to embark on anything of that nature? What are you kind of, if you were to win the Chief Justice seat, what might we see you do differently than just administer the court?
Well, I'm going to propose, with the help of the Bar Association, a strict new code of ethics for judges whereby no judge or justice will receive any kind of gift or any kind of personal benefit just for their position as a judge. And secondly, I think it's time we follow the directive of the United States Supreme Court and adopt a set of rules and procedures whereby a biased judge would be required to recuse or step down from a case. And obviously what I'm referring to there is the case of convicted Judge Mike Maggio, who's pled guilty in federal court to accepting a bribe in exchange for reducing a jury verdict. And also, I think we're nearing a public defender crisis in the state of Arkansas.
Okay.
They're overworked and understaffed, and they handle nearly 3 times as many cases as is recommended by the standards of the American Bar Association. So I hope to work with the legislature and the governor's office and other judges and justices to attempt to solve this problem, or at least meet it head on before we end up in some kind of federal lawsuit that could cost the state millions of dollars and might lose control of that system for a while. And also I'm going to be proposing more drug courts. I've been a drug court judge for 12 years. I can see the benefit of drug courts in reducing recidivism, hopefully reducing the number of people that would go to prison, and give nonviolent drug offenders, or at least offenders that have drug problems, an opportunity to stay in the community and change their lives for the better. So,
good thing it's an 8-year term, because you would need all 8 years to do a lot of that. I appreciate you being with us, Judge Kemp. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's Judge Dan Kemp. You can catch his full interview on our website at talkbusiness.net. After the break, Justice Courtney Goodson is on the witness stand, and later presidential politics, including my exclusive one-on-one with Senator Ted Cruz and our roundtable led by columnist John Brummett. Well, you heard from Judge Dan Kemp before the break. His opponent, Justice Courtney Goodson, and I also caught up to discuss this heated campaign. Here's a large portion of that interview. This is the biggest, most important position in the judicial branch of government, the Chief Justice seat there. Tell me why you are more qualified than your opponent, Judge Dan Kemp.
Well, Roby, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm more qualified because I have the relevant experience to do this job. I'm beginning my 6th year of service as a justice on the Arkansas Supreme Court after being a judge at the Arkansas Court of Appeals. I'm the only candidate in this race who has ever heard an appeal. I'm the only candidate who has ever decided a death penalty case on appeal or a constitutional appeal. I can hit the ground running on the day I'm sworn in. I'm convinced that this job is far too important for us to wait for on-the-job training to occur. I've got the right experience and I'm ready to go.
All right, you're no doubt familiar with some of the players that have been playing in this race. I think the Judicial Crisis Network is probably a group that you're familiar with. They've been running ads against you. One ad aligns you with President Obama in the 7-0 decision by the Supreme Court to overturn the voter ID law. Another ad lays out that you've received some gifts that you publicly disclosed. You say in those ads, about those ads, though, that they lie about you. Tell me specifically what's false about those ads.
Well, what we have seen, unfortunately, in Arkansas is over $1 million being funneled into our state by a dark money group from Washington. We don't know who their donors are. We don't know what their agenda is. We don't know how much they're willing to spend or what they want in return for their investment in Arkansas. It has been a coordinated effort to leave a narrative that they are playing out, that there has been some kind of wrongdoing, when in fact I have disclosed every single campaign contribution, been very transparent about gifts, and all of that's on record in the Secretary of State's office. So the narrative that they're trying to play, it's wrong factually, it's wrong ethically, it's morally corrupt. Even the press has said so.
There is an assertion in one of the ads, too, that you have ruled favorably towards trial attorneys, towards trial lawyers. That is part of the allegation that's in one of those particular ads. I would presume you feel that you have not been unfair in any of your rulings or biased in any of your rulings towards trial attorneys. Oh,
I think I've been abundantly fair. I think that I decide each and every case on the merits that the law brought before me. I'm not beholden to any of my donors. I'm beholden only to the people of Arkansas, to the Constitution, and to the rule of law.
You have called for Judge Kemp to take a stronger stand on the dark money that's in here. I think specifically you've asked him to stand up to the dark money. He has spoken against the dark money. He has talked to his supporters through his social media platforms. He's told the media. What would you have him do differently? What would you do if the tables were turned and you were being asked to stand up to the dark money?
Well, certainly I would take a firm stand against it, just as I am now, and speaking unequivocally that dark money has no place in our state. And let's be clear, my opponent made a Facebook posting 10 days after hundreds of thousands of dollars was poured into our state, on our televisions, on our radios, in our mailboxes, in yard signs, and only then made a lukewarm comment about one particular attack that the Washington, D.C. group had made against me. And then at the end of that post said that after he's elected with the benefit of all of this money, that then he'll look into doing something about it. And I think that that's what people in Arkansas and across our nation like. It's what people like least about politics. It's when a politician says one thing and then does something else. And if my opponent truly wants to be the candidate of integrity, if he truly wants to be the candidate who keeps politics out of the courtroom, then he would stand up to this dark money group and he would demand that, that they get out of Arkansas, that they get out of this race. He would ask the television stations to take those ads down, to pull them. That's what you would do. That is absolutely what I would do. That's the right thing to do. We need a Chief Justice who will lead, okay? Let's not just talk about it, let's demonstrate it. This is the time to show Arkansas and voters that you can lead.
So if you win the Chief Justice spot, you will certainly have the bully pulpit to do this. If you don't win, you still will be a Supreme Court Justice. Will you come testify to the state legislature? Will you push to have legislation drafted to rid the state of this dark money disclosure, whatever?
Absolutely. I will always be an advocate for transparency in elections and judicial elections, in clarity of rules, in accountability. So yes, I will be an advocate for giving Arkansas voters their voice back, because if we don't stand up to it, then Washington, D.C. insiders, they get to decide who our Chief Justice is. And if they can take this seat on the Arkansas Supreme Court, if they can buy it, they can buy any seat in Arkansas, in any county, for judge.
All right, there's been a big debate in this election cycle from some of the reporting out there, merit selection of judges versus election of judges. You are for electing judges, continuing the process that we've had since the 1800s when our Constitution was founded. Tell me why.
I'm for the election of judges all day, every day, Roby. We have a constitutional right to vote. and we can't take that for granted. A right to vote as to who leads us in the judiciary, it's so important. Here's what I found personally. I've been traveling the state of Arkansas. I get to go from corner to corner. I meet all kinds of people in Arkansas from different walks of life, and while I'm doing that, I learn their stories. I learn what they value, what's important to them, and you know what that does for me? It makes me a better judge. Why? Because I understand the people I serve better. And it is the election process that allows me to be out on the campaign trail and doing those very things, to be in all kinds of communities. So that enriches me as a public servant. Now, I understand that there are some who say that we should appoint judges, and I couldn't disagree more. They believe that if we appoint judges, that takes politics out of the process. No.
I'm pretty sure the Arkansas Bar Association would become a pretty big place for there to be some brokering of some delegates for that merit selection process.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a few powerful people in a back room who would be able to decide who served the people as judge. And I don't think that we should ever give up our right to have a voice in who serves Arkansas.
Last question for you. The late
Sure.
Chief Justice Jim Hanna did a lot to try to open up the courts more, to make them more public, more accessible, did some things
Yes.
from a PR standpoint. What would you do as Chief Justice that is not being done in terms of business of the court right now?
Well, let me first compliment his efforts in that we live stream our oral arguments every Thursday morning. Back in 2000, with the passage of Amendment 80, Appeals on Wheels came to Arkansas, where our court gets to travel twice per year to different communities and take our oral arguments and to say, we're going to Batesville next in April. And so those are two good things that were implemented. But to take that a step further, our court has to be current with changing communication. We have to be able to allow the people of Arkansas to hold us accountable real time. And I think there are some ways to provide that transparency and accountability in a better way to communicate more often and more frequently with voters, with the people that we serve.
All right, Justice Goodson, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
been a
Hang in
pleasure.
there until Election Day.
Thank
We'll talk
you.
afterwards.
I will.
And that's Justice Courtney Goodson. You can catch her full interview, just like Judge Kemp's, on our website at talkbusiness.net.